In this episode of Show Me the Money, I'm going to talk to you about 3 ways to reduce your vacancy risk. Hey bosses, welcome back to my channel, and this is Show Me the Money, and I am Daniel, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 ways to reduce your vacancy risk. Every time you invest in something, there is an associated risk to that investment. If you invest in the stock market, if you invest in a currency, if you invest in bonds, if you invest in real estate, always you're going to have risk. But having risks is more associated to knowing what you are doing than the actual thing that you are investing. Because if you know the risks, if you know how to mitigate that risk, you can have a successful investment. And all investments will always have risk. And on the real estate market, for those people that buy properties for passive income, meaning buying a property and receiving income forever while they have that property, one of the most important risks is the vacancy risk. Basically, the vacancy risk is the risk that you don't get paid by your tenant because he left. So that's what vacancy risk is. So the more time your property stays vacant, the biggest the risk for you, because not only you're not going to have income, you still have all the expenses to pay. And on this episode, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to reduce that risk, and stay tuned for the end of this video, because there is where I'm going to talk about which for me is the most important one and the most amazing way to invest in real estate. The first way is to invest in properties that you can rent to families that are assisted by some kind of program in the government, such as the Section 8 housing program, which basically is a family that needs to prove in a local administration that the household income for that family is less than half or no more than half of what the average in that area is. So they go to a local authority like the county or the city, they fill a form, they prove whatever they want to prove or they have to prove, and they can get approved for Section 8. And this Section 8 can be partial, meaning the government will pay part of the rent, or it can be full benefit where the government's going to pay everything. And the beauty of this is that the government doesn't give the money to the family so the family can give the money to you. Because if they did that, you still would have the default risk where they wouldn't pay you. But when you have your property rented to a family that has a Section 8 program, the government will pay directly to you. So they never touch the money. The tenants never touch the money. So that reduces your default risk and, of course, your vacancy risk, because once they are approved, they want to stay in that house as long as possible. They don't want to get disapproved or unapproved. So they are going to respect the rules. You need to respect yours. And if you do that, you are going to have a successful renting business. The second way to reduce your vacancy risk is doing long-term leases. And if you do that, make sure you do with a company, because they always have more power to pay or more conditions to pay you. Usually office buildings, warehouses, or even build-to-suit buildings, they do contracts for 5, 10, 20, even 30 years. So that is a very good way to reduce your vacancy risk, because you know there's a commitment from the tenant to stay through the end of the contract. And even if they leave before, it's their responsibility to keep paying you. So you can have sublease clauses where if they leave, they can sublease that contract to another person, but they still are the responsible to pay for your revenue, for their rent, your revenue. And on that helm, where you're talking to companies to rent your properties, I would suggest the Triple Net Leases. The Triple Net Leases is a very nice kind of deal where the tenant usually moving into a build-to-suit building where the build was done to suit their business. coffee shops, restaurants, pharmacy, supermarket. Those companies, they don't want to spend money on real estate. They want to spend money on inventory, on their business. So they usually partner up with investors saying, build for me whatever I want. I will be there for 30 years. So they pay for the rent for the whole period. And the triple net leases, not only the rent they will pay, they will be responsible to pay the property tax, the insurance, and the maintenance. That's why it's a triple net lease. You have nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do. It's the true passive income investment, which is very good. Of course, the better the tenant is, the longest the contract is, the lower is going to be your risk, and of course, the lowest is going to be your return. But still, if you are willing to reduce your risk, you're going to reduce a little bit of your return, and that's always healthy. And now the third way to reduce your vacancy risk, which for me is my most preferred way to invest in real estate, the best way, the most secure, the safest, and the way that you can make a lot of money is the multifamily properties. If you are in this channel for a long time, you knew I was going to talk about it. The beauty of the multifamily property is that in one address, you have multiple streams of revenue. Everything that has one roof and several doors, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more, 100, 200, 300,000, those are considered multifamily properties because a lot of families, they live in the same address. Of course, they have the door number, but the main address, it's exactly the same. And why is that a good way to reduce your vacancy rate? Because it's the only investment that is not binary. Single family homes, binary, 100% of the revenue or 0% of the revenue. Triple net lease, binary, 100% of the revenue, 0% of the revenue. Multifamily property, not binary. You can have 10 tenants. One leaves, you have 9 tenants paying. 5 leave, you have another 50% of the tenants paying for you. So that's a very good way to reduce your vacancy rate because you can have different vacancy rates in your property. 1%, 10%, 50%, 100%. So you can always be protected by your own assets, that if you lose some of those tenants, the other ones are still going to pay you. And now the bonus for the multifamily property, not only you are reducing your vacancy risk, but also you are going to be able to control the value of the property. I already did a video about it that I'm going to link somewhere here. But when you have a multifamily property and you do renovations on it, then it allows you to increase the rent, automatically you increase the value of the property. So those are the 3 ways that you can reduce your vacancy risk. I see you in the next video.